I'm Jason Johnson, and I'm having conversations with leaders all over the world about heart-centered leadership and this global movement. It's happening everywhere. It's not 2019 anymore. People want more from their work. They want a sense of belonging, the human connection. They want mental health to be a priority. They want joy and fulfillment at work. And from a business standpoint, we're talking about employee engagement, employee retention, productivity, organizational health. We're talking about leadership. And my guest today is Jill Valdez, the founder of Linked Consulting. Hi, Jill. How are you?
I'm well, Jason. Thanks so much. I'm so excited for us to be talking about this today.
Yeah, me too. I love your tagline, transform your leadership, transform your business.
Yeah.
Tell me
It,
about that.
you know, look, at the end of the day, when people start looking at like business owners and business leaders, when they're looking at things and go, things just aren't going right. This is not a popular opinion. I'm going to say it anyway. Frankly and honestly, they have to take a look at themselves and how are they doing as a leader. And it's not, look, I don't think that leaders are bad by nature. I don't think that they strike out to be bad leaders. Most of the time, what happens is they've gotten into that position because they were really great at the work that they were doing, and it's just afforded them the opportunity to advance. And they've not been given the leadership training. But if your business isn't doing well, you have to take a look at where's the breakdown. And frankly, the breakdown it's not in an operational process most of the time. It is not in the product that's being offered. It really has to do with who's leading and about the team that's being led and how are they being led. And so if you can transform that, which look, I fully believe that anybody can transform, that I'm a huge subscriber of transformational leadership. So I believe that anybody can make progress. Not everybody's going to be a 10 on the leadership scale, but everybody can go from one place to another.
Yeah.
And if you do that, it doesn't matter what the degree is. If you change your leadership, if you elevate your leadership, then you are going to transform your business.
Yeah. Progress is progress, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's 1% or 20%, whatever, it's still progress.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And when we look at the workforce today, uh, it's interesting because it's rare to find resumes with 10 years at one location or 20 years at one location. They're constantly job hopping, and part of that is looking at it, or one way to look at that is to go, oh, they just don't know what they want and they're not stable or whatever, right? But another
Right.
way to look at that is why are they leaving? And when we look at employee retention, I mean, retaining your employees can be a business killer if there's constant turnover, right? Like you need stability. And when you talk about leadership and whether it's getting better 1% or 10%, just movement, um what does that look like? I mean, why are people leaving, or what is it that they want from their employer?
They want leadership. That at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want to be led. They want to be given a vision of where things are going. How are we going to get there? And then here's my unique, like if I'm an employee, here's my unique ability of what I can contribute to the team and what I can contribute to the success. That's kind of the foundation of what I teach when I'm working with companies. My background is I was a pastor for 17 years. All of my staff were volunteers. I didn't get to motivate them with a paycheck like we used to do, back in the day.
Yeah.
I didn't get to say, oh, you better show up or else what? Or else I'm going to end up doing it, or I'm going to pull somebody else to do the work who's probably not qualified and definitely not gifted at it. So I quickly learned how to activate them, how to engage them, how to say, are you the right person for this role? Here's how your gifts and your personality contributes to the success. And here's how you're helping us as an organization be successful. When companies can do that for their team and for their people, then all of a sudden you have this group of people that stands behind a leader who understands it is about bringing out the best in me, because when I'm at my best, when anybody's at their best, they're all of a sudden they're a rock star. But if they don't know where they're going, if they're not being led well, then most of the time what you see them sitting back, being very passive, coming in, clocking out, not taking initiative, not taking ownership. And all the while going home and feeling frustrated and disheartened because all they want is for their leader to lead them. Show me what to do, because it's no fun coming to work knowing that there's things for you to do, or maybe you're being held accountable for something and you're getting in trouble for not doing it right, because again, you don't have somebody leading you to show you how to do it. All those things contribute to an employee feeling completely disengaged, very disheartened and frustrated. And that's what gets them to put Indeed back on their phone and start scrolling through that, probably on your dime.
Yeah, and engagement is our number one priority, right? Like you said, if we're not engaged with the employees, then they're not going to be engaged with the work that they're doing.
Right.
And a big part of that is communication. I think you do some work around communication, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I have a workshop. It's called Cracking the Communication Code. I was introduced to the DISC assessment probably 15 years ago. It literally changed my life, probably saved my marriage. If you're familiar with it,
Yes.
I am an almost off the chart D. Fortunately, I'm also a very high I, which again is why people stick around and how I'm able to maintain friendships and relationships. But learning that about myself and learning how, because people would come to me and be like, you're so intimidating. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm intimidating. Like, I love working with people. I love getting stuff done. We're just getting things done. Learning that about myself and how I came across to people, and then being able to learn like how other people think. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And so I've taken that assessment and created this workshop to say, look, this is who I am. This is who you are. This is how I communicate. This is how you communicate. This is how together as a team, we can communicate. These are signs and things that I need to look for that indicate that maybe we're having some conflict. I did this for one company. I have some amazing stories about it. It's probably one of my favorite workshops to present. When I was first getting started, I did it for a company, and one of the associates, she emailed me like 2 weeks later. She's like, oh my gosh, me and my manager, we used to have to send like 12, 15 emails back and forth to each other to get clear on what it was that I was supposed to be doing. And now he understands what I need, and I understand how he communicates, and it's completely changed everything. Our productivity has gone through the roof. I did it for this other company. It was a dentist office, and I posted on Facebook that I was getting ready to that I was doing work on the workshop, and so an acquaintance calls me up and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you have to come and work with my team." She said, "They are the worst," and she went on for like 10 minutes talking about how awful they were. I'm like, I don't know that I want to do this, but okay. And I walked in, and you could just feel how much of a struggle and conflict there was that was going on in this organization. So I did the workshop, I did the presentation, and knew after they all completed the assessment, like, okay, I knew what the problem was. Again, she's a high D and the rest of her team were S's. She's super driven, task focused. And the rest of her team, they're very people-y, they touchy-feely, let's keep things stable, let's just kind of go along. And so that's where there was this rub. And I knew I was going to have to talk to her about it. And she looks at me, we're about halfway through. She looks at me and she goes, Jill, I'm the problem. I went, oh, phew. And I said, well, not that you're the problem, but there definitely is this conflict, and here's why. And so we worked together right there in the workshop. And then also I did a little bit of one-on-one coaching with her. A couple of years later, she called me, or she texted me, and she said, thank you for saving my marriage. And I called her. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, of course I made my husband take that thing. And turns out that he's the same personality as everybody that I work with. And obviously I'm the same personality at home. She said, I took what you coached me, I took what you taught me, and I applied that at home. And what she didn't know is that he had already met with an attorney and was looking at divorce.
Wow.
And it totally transformed things. Like they're still married today, and that's been years ago. So to really nail down communication, I mean, look, Patrick Lencioni, he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and he says that trust is foundational for a functional team. I sometimes say that I actually believe that communication is foundational, because if you and I trust each other, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But if we're communicating, there's still a massive breakdown. So yeah, communication, obviously, I'm super passionate about it. When people get it right, it just blows the doors off of possibility and potential.
Yeah, communication, I would agree. Communication really is the oil that keeps the gears moving,
Yeah.
right? It really is. And it's more often than not, it is the leading cause of dysfunction. Yeah.
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 Yep, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the DISC assessment. I love Patrick Lencioni, and we talked about a little bit about Working Genius, and but I love what you said, that this person said that you saved their marriage, right? Like, that's heart centered, right? Like, that's we're working with people on their personal development, which naturally shows up at work and
Yes.
shows up at home, and so that's this ripple effect of the things that they learn and they're growing with in their professional life, and it impacting those that love them right at home. Those, they get the people that love them at home are getting a better version of them. And I love that. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Um, it's back to leadership and teamwork. Um, people today do want somebody who's more engaging. And I think that a lot of, like, I think you said this at the beginning, that it's not that managers are bad. It's just that there's room for growth. And I think change is the most constant thing that you can count on in the universe, right? Like we change, we adapt. We're not riding horses and buggies around anymore,
Thank
right?
goodness.
And
Yeah.
yeah, thank goodness. And not just with things in the world, but with humans evolve, right? Like, there's things that are important today. And I love that you do a whole workshop around communication. Um, people are looking for that human connection. They're looking for leadership. And what does that mean? And you were talking about disengaged individuals. And I mean, what's a tip that if a manager's wanting to learn to be more engaging with their employees, what's one thing that they can, like, just start doing to help with that?
Yeah. You know, the first thing that they can do is start to get to actually know their employees.
Mhm.
There was so much time where there was like this invisible wall between leaders and employees. I'm up here, you're there, I'm the leader, you're the minions. And yet that has changed.
Yeah.
COVID taught us that no matter what, we're all people.
Yep.
And like some of my background is hospice work, and there are diseases and death. It does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. it does not discriminate. And so the idea of coming into the workplace, of recognizing we all have value. You might be the leader, and that's because you have value, whether it was because you've been with the company longer, or because you have leadership skills, or because you understand the process better, right? I have just as much value in the company because of the role that I'm playing. If I'm not there, somebody else has to pick it up. Somebody else has to come in. And so if leaders can break away from the fear of being known and spend the time of actually getting to know their employees. We worked with this pastor, we were at a church for a couple of years. We were youth pastors, my husband and I. And I mean, you talk about a jaded pastor, a jaded leader. He was like, you never, ever let people come over to your house. You don't let people in, you keep this big brick wall. And he was miserable. And you talk about turnover. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who came in staff with them signed a 2-year contract, and nobody extended that contract. Like, they were like, he's out. It was really sad that there's that barrier. And so to answer your question, long way around,
No,
if leaders could just spend the time getting to know their people and being authentic enough, it's not even being vulnerable. It's just about being real enough to say, and this is who I am, so that we can truly be the best versions of ourselves in this space. Because when we're all the best versions of ourselves, then the company gets the best. And if the company gets the best of us, and it's a good company, then they're going to reward that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a great place to start, is just to get to know your people, get to know them as human beings, and it's so often that, we have Sally in accounting, and we only go to Sally when we have accounting questions, answers that need to be made, problems or solutions to find. And the only thing you get from Sally is that stuff. But like, life happens, right? And when things happen, there's this disconnect, and Sally's not going to show up like she would normally because she's not being seen. It's just this transactional relationship.
Yeah.
And when we start to get to know that, Sally's a grandmother, she loves fishing, her favorite team's the San Francisco 49ers or whoever, right? Then there's that connection, and there's energy built around the relationship. And like you said, it has to be authentic, because people know. I mean, people are smart, and they know whether they're being manipulated or just engaged authentically. And so I think that's so important. And thank you for sharing. I know you said, to answer my question, you went off on this story, but I think it was all relevant. It was all good. Yeah, I think, you and I had talked previously, and you talked about being a pastor or helping get a program off the ground. So what's been your journey to where you're at today with Link?
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I never thought I would be doing this. Like I said, I was a pastor. My husband and I co-pastored for 17 years. I thought I was going to be doing that forever. And we were at a really difficult church. And for my own mental health, I said, I can't do this anymore. Peace out. And so then I went on a road of discovery, like, what am I supposed to be doing, and what am I doing? I spent some time working in the senior care industry. I worked in a memory care facility, loved that. It was super, super healing for me, and such a great experience. And then went on to finish my degree, got a master's in industrial organizational psychology, and discovered that I've always known that I love helping people, but to make that connection about the psychology of business, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And so I was working for a company. I was their associate director of HR. And the president of the company said, hey, what you've done for my company, what you've done for my people, you need to be doing for more than one company at a time and
Wow.
not an employee.
Wow.
So kicking you out of the nest. I'm going to be your first client, but go start your own agency. That was back in 2018. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I went on a road of discovery and worked on figuring out what it was that he saw and how I put that into a program. And then also I had no idea about marketing. So it took a good year and a half of figuring that out. We moved to Portland. I'm in Portland. I'm just outside of Portland, Oregon. We moved here and I was super excited because we were coming from the middle of nowhere, Arizona. I was like, yeah, my ideal client. They're all around. I'm going to finally get to do this full time. This is going to be amazing. We moved here 5 days before COVID shut everything down. So that put a kibosh on that. And so I kept it in the background, kept doing what I was doing and worked full-time in hospice. So still got to lead with my heart and still got to make an impact. And then last year I got laid off from my hospice company. They were acquired. They did a massive reorganization. There was a huge riff and they eliminated my role. And I said, well, I know exactly what I'm getting back to. And it's been an amazing journey this last year. I kind of feel like it's my first year, even though it's not my first year. I've been able to make some great relationships and work with some fantastic companies, watching them transform themselves, transform their leadership, and really the trajectory of their business through the work that we've been doing. So here I am.
Wow. I love that story. Because it is heart-centered. You followed your heart, you followed your passion, and life happens, right? Like you said, I mean, it happens all the time. Companies buy other companies, structure realignment happens, and sometimes that's the world nudging you in a different direction. And so, yeah, thanks. So thanks for that, for being you and showing up the way you do. Do you primarily work with companies then in the Portland area, or do you work with companies all over?
I can work with companies all over. I have a client back in North Carolina. I have one in Indiana. So yeah, I don't have to, when I do the workshops, I want to do those live. So if it's not local, they'll need to bring me in. But
Yeah.
other than that, all the other work can be done. I mean, technology is fabulous, right?
Yep.
We all know how
Yep.
to use it now. Although
Fantastic.
there's still times where I'll join a Zoom call and I'll be muted. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? We
Uh,
know that by now.
yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing with leaderships that want with somebody in leadership that wants to take this journey, but they're struggling getting over, the hump, or because I mean, when you said earlier that you talked to your friend and someone reached out to you and invited you into their organization, and then she realized, oh my God, it's me. Like
Yes.
the first thing that came to my mind was, Cesar Chavez and the dog whisperer, right? Like, not that employees are dogs by any means. That's not the point of the story, but people are constantly saying, I need your help because my team is terrible, or I have these associates that are terrible. And always in the end of the episode, it's they need to work on their leadership skills because they are the leader of the pack, right? And so I just find that's such a wonderful gift, really, to somebody to be able to realize that thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's so for you, is that what you're seeing, is like people bring you in because of an issue and then they figure out that, oh my gosh, I need to do things differently?
Yeah. They all start with, we need to do something different. They most of the time don't know what it is.
Hmm.
Uh, and and where I see the biggest barrier to people having me come in is fear. It's this fear of, what if it's me, and what if I can't change, and then the other thing is what if I have to change completely, which none of that is true. There's such minor adjustments that have to be made in
Yeah.
order for somebody to be able to live fully up to their potential. This is not, like, when I first got started, I talked about that I help companies build their dream team without starting from scratch, because you don't have to fire everybody and hire a whole new team in order to have your dream team. There's changes and there's adjustments that you make, you as the leader, and then help them as the team to be able to make those adjustments. And then you have your dream team. And it's the same thing with anybody. Is there's always growth opportunities in who
Yeah.
we are. And if we're not willing to do that work, if we're not willing to take those steps, then we will forever stay in the position that we're in, and continue to experience the same frustrations that we've always experienced. But if we want to see things differently, we have to do things differently.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, right?
I know. It's simple for me because I teach them to do it.
So
But
simple. Just
I
do things differently.
right? Yeah. Do it
There's,
different. Come
yeah,
on.
there's definitely work, right, that's needed and required. That's what I love. You see a lot of companies or a lot of people talk about emotional intelligence. And earlier you touched on um, that you take this kind of leader through this self-awareness thing, and that's the
Mhm.
first step in emotional intelligence, right? and
Yeah.
then and then awareness of your team, and that's
Yeah.
the second step. Well, self-awareness and managing self, right? But then being aware of your team and managing those relationships
Yeah.
is so important.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm loving this conversation. um what's one piece of advice, if you could give it to our listeners, if they're looking for a place to start? I mean, obviously, I want to also highlight how people can connect with you. But what would one piece of advice be that you would want to leave the listener with?
Give yourself permission to be human. You know, we've become this culture that, and look, I'm not bashing social media because I'm on it all the time. Um, but the one drawback of social media is it's created this false idea of what life really is. And so if I could tell people, just give yourself permission to be you. That means that you're gonna make mistakes. And if you don't realize that you're going to make mistakes, I can guarantee you everybody else around you knows that you're going to make a mistake. And letting other people have the freedom to make mistakes. You know, like I have some great pictures of my dog. I've put them up on different social media sites. It takes probably 15 different times just to get the one, right? Like, and so let's be real and let's be truly who we are. I believe that everybody was created with a purpose. We all have a purpose in this world. And if I'm not living my purpose, and if I'm not giving myself permission to be who I am, the people in my world miss out. If you're not being who you are created to be, if you're not being who you're purposed to be, I miss out on that. There's an element of life that is missing because you are not giving yourself permission to fully be you.
I love that. I appreciate you being here, and I know that we're adding value to the listener. I mean, lots of really good stuff. What does that mean to you in the work that you do?
Taking responsibility for what your world looks like. There's a large part that we are not victims to what is happening around us. We have the ability to influence our environment. You may be in a really sucky job, but that doesn't mean that you can't still be a positive light. I heard it, I was at a conference one time and the guy was talking about the environment, and he said that whatever is given attention, whatever the environment allows, that's what's going to grow. But
Mhm.
if your environment doesn't allow for certain behaviors or certain mindsets, or then you shift and create your environment, your space, to say that that's not going to be in my space, and then it has to go away one way or the other. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And if somebody wants to connect with you, find out more about the wonderful work that you do, uh, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. Anybody can find me on LinkedIn. I hang out there pretty frequently. And then they can go to my website, linkconsulting.info.
Okay.
And then when they go there, they will be given the opportunity to download for free. I have a little ebook called Confident Leadership, How to Be a Confident Leader of a Committed Team Providing Stellar Service. I promise you the title is longer than the book. But it's one of those quick and easy reads with some pieces that you can start implementing right now to how to be that confident leader and how to then activate the people around you to be that committed team.
That's awesome. So I'll leave a link to your website and a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes, and people can go there and get their free book.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate you being here and taking the time to carve out and add some value to this conversation.
I've enjoyed having the conversation. Thank you for the time and the opportunity, Jason.